Hello, I'm Nova SC, and this is not SC, this is my mod named Vast, and this map is the Runway, that I've tirelessly toiled over and perfected, even though there's these little lines which I can't figure out how to do even when I smudge it. But I'm just gonna have to live with that. Looks a bit weird, but anyway. I like the map overall, and all that matters is it's fun to play on. All these tiny little these tiny little aesthetics aren't that important. I like this sort of ledge, it's good. I'll stop talking. So, yeah, I'm making this video to explain that I have finished this map. I've completed all the units, all the upgrades pretty much. I might add more in just to make it, just if I think that would be fun. But I've got roughly 11 or so upgrades for each race. They're all here. These are the Psyche ones. The other races I'm not going to research upgrades for, because I'm just going to test for you now just the balance between the three races. It's not perfectly balanced, but I've spent some time testing the production of each race and testing the cost efficiency of all the units. So, the first thing I tried was basically producing as many units as I could for each race in a certain amount of time, and pitting the units that they produced against each other. As you expect, Psyche is probably the best. Is the best in this respect because it can produce these light infantry very quickly, and the light infantry are like better marines for roughly the same cost. So yeah, you'd expect them to do really well. And the thing is, the tier 1 units, the tier 1.5 and tier 2 units of each race are very good against light infantry though, so as long as you know what you're doing, which shouldn't be too hard if you play after 2 games, I think you'll get the hang of it. Yeah, then these shouldn't be too difficult to deal with, so I'm happy with the balance on these guys. Sparkstorm Elementals, it's harder to build these, but they're fast, very good. They reward micro a lot. They get weaker as the game progresses, as some units can get armor, so they have a very fast firing rate, which makes them worse as armor increases, if that makes sense. And Berserkers, I've had a hard time balancing these. I'm probably going to have to change them again in the future, but I've increased their damage and health since I first planned them. It's because you have a charging unit. You have a unit which begins with charge. I was thinking it was going to be overpowered, but it's not, because it misses a lot of its shots, and it's stupid. It's a stupid unit, so I think it's quite fair now. And I'll just demonstrate these for you now. I'm going to research. 1 second. I'm going to research light infantry armor. I'll explain why afterwards. And I'll have these guys attacking each other. So this one costs 50 mana, this one costs 75 mana. But this one's a lot faster and has more HP. And I think actually you might regenerate faster as well, I can't even remember. So and this wins, but only barely. And that's intentional. I don't want it to be. I'm trying to balance this game. I'm not going to make it overpowered and win one-sidedly. My idea was that these two would trade fairly evenly on a straight-up engagement. Because these obviously cost more, these are going to be moving faster. So if you have superior numbers of these over the light infantry, then they're going to be winning very one-sidedly because you can micro back very nicely. So I don't want them winning. I definitely do not want these winning one-sidedly on a one-on-one battle. So that was very close. I like that. That's what I was planning to achieve. I'll have a Sparkstorm against a Berserker. I could have charged into that, but whatever. And the Berserker and the Sparkstorm cost roughly the same amount, but the Berserker wins very one-sidedly, and that is intentional because of the speed of these Sparkstorm Elementals. Even when they're charging, Berserkers are bad sometimes in certain situations, and I don't want people dying because they make Berserkers and die to these scout units. Dying to a scout unit when you build Berserkers is a bit embarrassing, so I'll demonstrate. So that missed a shot. He charges in. So as long as your opponent's microing, Berserkers aren't that good. So he's going to charge in. He actually misses the shot. But you have to properly micro, so you have to charge in, and then just before he hits, you move forward and then smash to the side. Quite difficult things to micro. So yeah, so I definitely want Berserkers winning very one-sidedly against Sparkstorms if neither of them are microed, because otherwise anyone with a small amount of micro and makes a lot of Sparkstorm elementals is going to destroy anyone who makes Berserkers, and I don't want that, absolutely not. Berserkers are supposed to be tanky, destructive units which blast through all the other tier 1 units, so yeah, that's not what I want. And for the interest of yeah, and then I'll show you a Berserker against the light infantry. Berserkers cost 25 gas more. As you expect, they're going to win. But as the lights deal so much damage in a single shot, more damage per shot than a marine, you have to take this my word for it. If you micro the light back and forward, stutter step it, it does, I think, very well against Berserkers. I'm not going to try it now because it's quite hard, and they're both allied to me, so I'm going to have to stutter step and keep clicking on the Berserker. But yeah, the Berserker won't have much life if you do that sort of engagement, which is why I've given it charge pretty much, and that sort of balances the game out, the tier 1 units out, I believe, but there probably will be more changes needed. And let's have a look. So here are the tier 1.5 units. Nova obviously has 2 of them. It's Psyche, the RPG expert, and Lightning Storm Elemental for Elemental. So I'll demonstrate a few of the units here. So a Leech against a Lightning Storm Elemental. It costs similar amounts, but as the Leech is the harassment focused unit and flies and actually is faster as well, it's going to lose in the straight up engagement because the Lightning Storm Elemental was the slow damage dealer unit. And even though I've unlike in the previous examples, it only barely won because I don't want it being one-sidedly winning these sort of battles, because otherwise that's going to make for some boring games. If one player makes leeches and the other player makes Lightning Storm Elementals, I don't want the player who makes leeches instantly losing. That wouldn't be cool. So I just want the players who have made these slower units to have an advantage. Not a really straight up, not a stupidly unfair one. And here is the RPG expert against the Lightning Storm Elemental. Lightning Storm Elementals cost more than RPG experts. Oh, they're different economies, so they're similar, but it still wins very, very one-sidedly, and that's because Lightning Storm Elementals deal damage to a single target, and whereas RPG experts are good against clusters of units, which is where it should be. Now, if I throw in a little bit of micro and have a little bit of a buffer, and have the... hopefully this works. I haven't tested this out, that's probably a bad idea. So I'll have them attacking that and then that. That's just because yeah, so that was silly. That made a shocking amount of difference. Yeah, that was insane. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Actually, can't remember. Yeah, so an RPG expert should not beat Lightning Storm Elementals because they've got completely different roles in the army. But when you throw in a little bit of a meat shield, because these don't deal any splash damage, even if these units were clustered up, they wouldn't deal any more damage. Very small amounts of meat shield go a long way, so it helped the RPG expert to win there. I'm very confused about what I wanted to say before, but never mind. I've researched the upgrade for the lights. So, a tier 1 upgrade for these light infantry is to just give it 1 extra armor. And armor isn't the same as in StarCraft 2. You can't get armor upgrades for every unit. You can only get them on certain units, and there's good reason why. And you can only get attack upgrades on certain units as well. So you remember how this unit lost to this unit before? With one simple upgrade. And we can see that the light is not taking nearly as much damage now. Each of these shots is now only dealing 1 damage, so that upgrade has reduced the damage it's taking by a half. That's only versus one specific unit. Versus other units it doesn't make such a massive impact Other units, it does make a good impact against our leeches because they deal small amounts of damage with a high attack speed. And I think there was something else, something like a fire, might have been the firestorm elemental or something. But yeah, so I put this upgrade in so that in the early game you can get these spark storms out and scout around and challenge these lights and kill them in many occasions. But then as the game progresses into the mid game, you can get this upgrade and make your light infantry very strong against the Sparkstorm elementals, so that the role of the Sparkstorm elementals changes into the mid game. One last thing. There was another thing. Oh yes, I wanted to show you. Oh yes, big tier 3 units. Yes. So these are the. Actually, first I'll show you this. Sorry, I didn't structure this very well. I should have written a script or something. I don't know. So this is the Nova race, and they have 4 tier 1 units. This is the tier 1 unit, and these are like tier 1.5. But so I'll show you how they sort of counter each other in a nice little triangle or square. So these two beat these because Berserkers can't shoot up, and then Berserkers beat Punishers because Punishers charge into the Berserkers charge into the Punishers, even though they're cheaper, a lot cheaper than Punishers. 2 of these beats 1 Punisher, so they're very cost effective. And Punishers obviously beat these and these because they do additional damage versus air. The difference between these 2 units is this one is a lot less cost effective than this one, and leeches are better. They're more cost effective in that they regenerate their own health. But these are like the sort of things that you can get out early, massive things with a lot of health to take your opponent off guard, and they also one-shot workers, which is a lot of fun. So I'm just playing around with all these mechanics, and I'll just show you how they counter each other. So obviously, you know, these 2 are going to beat beat the Berserkers, but Berserkers beat Punisher fairly one-sidedly there. I didn't micro, but it doesn't make much of a difference. You have to take my word for that. Punishers cost less than a leech, but look how silly that fight is. It's the most one-sided fight. I might have to make it less one-sided and maybe give them less versus air damage, but it's doing what I want at the moment. Or maybe I'll give this an upgrade to give it, I don't know, armor or something, I don't know. And actually leeches are pretty good against Void Maws as well, but not fantastic. Not fantastic. You really want Punishers. Oh dear, Void Maws are scary. Good lord. So I'll move on to tier 3 units now. You can see how I balanced all these things. Hopefully you can take my word for that. So Malice is the most expensive unit in the game, owned by the Nova race, the Zergy looking one. I'm going to put it up against the Master Ship, which isn't quite as expensive, and it shoots with your Master Cannons every shot, which is fun. And like you'd expect, the Malice wins. But it wasn't very one-sided, it doesn't have a huge amount of life left, and I've done that because the Master Ship's supposed to be a anti-air focused. It dominates the air, that's the idea, whereas Malice is good against everything. It actually deals a lot of damage versus light as well, so if this beats anti-air units very easily, then that wouldn't be fair in my eyes. And I'll show you against the Cosmic Elemental. The Cosmic Elemental is the Elemental's biggest unit. Oh, this is another unit which lights are good against. They have lots of attacks, low damage on each attack. So the armor increase on those light elementals, light infantry makes a big difference against Cosmic Elementals. And that was an extremely close fight, and that's because they pretty much have the same role. So I would like them to have very fair fights. The only difference is Malice, I would say, cost a little bit more. And that's because they deal more damage to light and they do better splash damage, whereas these do a little bit more damage versus offensive and can only attack 2 units at the same time, whereas these can attack lots of little units at the same time. I'm not going to be able to test that out because I haven't made any hostile units, unfortunately, but never mind. And finally, Master Ships versus Cosmic Elementals. Because these Cosmic Elementals and Malice have similar DPS, this should be fairly the same sort of exchange. And Cosmic Elementals should win, I'd have thought. Yeah. Yeah. But the Cosmic Elementals are a lot slower than all the other units, so though they look really strong here, they aren't quite as strong as they look, and they don't have like any of the. They're not motherships. They don't have Vortex or Cloak or anything like their models would suggest. These are just like the closest to what I was imagining in my head for a Cosmic Elemental. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show you there. I hope I've convinced you that this is somewhat fair to begin with, and fair enough for you to be playing without getting too pissed off. It has been a lot of fun working on it. It's a nice feeling that it's all out there and live. It's live on the EU server. Please give it a review and a play. That'd be really cool. And I'm going to change a lot of these models, I think, in the future. But yeah, hopefully I can actually put a game on my channel of someone playing this in the future. I might be able to get, I don't know, maybe some of my friends to play it with me. But yes, hope you enjoyed looking at this game. I'll see you later.